Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what truly makes a child smile? Is it a lavish mansion, gleaming supercars, fine dining dinners ordered from Michelin-starred restaurants? Or is it something far simpler, something money could never buy? Today's story touches on that measures success, love, and what really matters. In Manhattan among the forest of glass towers, Gabriel Harris, 45, ran an investment fund praised in financial papers. His company's ecosystem stretched from Midtown to Brooklyn. His home was in the Upper East Side, a private elevator straight into the penthouse, a screening room, a gym, an indoor pool, long enough for laps, and an open kitchen overlooking Central Park. Wealth was everywhere so much that the echo of emptiness was drowned out until silence became the only sound left. 8 months ago, his wife Isabella Harris died in a highway accident. Luke, 8, once a chatterbox, suddenly fell silent. Valerie, 5, their little sunshine, refused to eat her body, thinning quickly. Gabriel, a man who signed contracts worth hundreds of millions, was powerless against the hollow sadness in his children's eyes. He did what wealthy people often do when panic strikes: he threw money at the problem. Famous pediatric therapists on the Upper West Side, Soho, $300, $500 a session. Nannies with glittering resumes. Early childhood education degrees. CPR certificates, recommendation letters like trophies. He turned a spare room into a toy sanctuary. PS5, Nintendo Switch, Lego Technic sets. By the thousands, 118 Bugatti models, a complete American Girl collection. The kitchen overflowed with boxes from Nobu Carbone Levain. But the kids didn't touch any of it. Everything sat there polished, expensive, and lifeless. The house changed state from home to mausoleum. The piano, where Isabella once played every night, was dusted with a fine layer like ashes of memory. The long dining table seated 8, but dinner was only 3 people, and 3 shadows of silence. The kitchen, the heart of any American home, lost its scent, replaced with pristine takeout stickers. Gabriel buried himself in work, leaving at 6 a.m., returning past 10 p.m. He told himself, "I'm doing this for their future." But who was carrying the present, grief unnamed, froze inside the walls. In America, family tragedy rarely stands alone. It intertwines with class and race. The Upper East Side was used to outsourcing time problems, and feelings often got outsourced too. Nannies came with textbook qualifications, but no warmth, applying formulas of distraction instead of letting children remember. Gabriel, terrified that mentioning Isabella would hurt the kids more, set an unspoken rule: don't talk about mom in front of them. The nannies followed professionally, turning memory into a forbidden zone, pushing longing into the dark. That was when Elena Sanders stepped into the Harris home, a black woman, 42, in a blue uniform, worn flats, a single mother of 3. She didn't come as a nanny, but as a cleaner sent by the service company. In the hallway and elevator, eyes skimmed her skin before settling on her face. Some addressed her in a condescending tone, "cleaning lady." Gabriel himself brushed past her that morning. Quick instructions: change the sheets, polish the counters, tidy the kitchen, and disappeared into his meetings. He didn't know, and never asked, that Elena had once studied elementary education, had even taught for a few years, before economic collapse forced her into triple shifts to raise Jamal, 22, Danielle, 19, and Caleb, 15. Her diploma was folded away, but her ability to read a child's sadness was not. Elena never advertised that. In many corners of America, when a black woman speaks of her capability, suspicion follows. She chose instead to let her actions speak, and when Elena began observing, the story shifted. In Luke's room, toys, unopened screens, glowing, but the boy absent. In Valerie's American Girl dolls, untouched, a Vermont dollhouse, standing still like a museum piece. On the piano lid, a photo from their last Christmas: Isabella, in a red dress, Gabriel's arm around her, the children laughing like fireworks. In the kitchen, Elna discovered Isabella's recipe notebook, handwritten lines neat and steady, chocolate brownies, apple pie, sundae pancakes. Tucked between the pages, a photo of mother and kids dusted with flour but radiant. The taste of home, it turned out, hadn't been lost, it was just misplaced. If a child's emotions were treated like an illness, then what the Harris family had done for the past 8 months was nothing more than medicating symptoms with premium morphine. Gabriel's prescription came in 3 categories: experts, entertainment, fine dining, all correct on paper but all wrong for lacking a heart. Category 1, experts. Luke and Valerie's schedules were packed with consultations in Uptown and Soho waiting rooms stocked with alkaline water dispensers and abstract paintings tilted just enough to look artsy. Each session cost $300, $500 filled with clinical notes like limit negative stimuli. In plain language, avoid mentioning mom. The therapists were polite, refined, sometimes so careful they sterilized emotions. But children like saplings don't need clean rooms. They need soil to root their grief and sunlight to grow. Category 2, entertainment. Gabriel transformed an empty room into a tech paradise: PS5 Switch gaming chairs, curved screens, Lego Technic stacked like fortress walls, supercar models displayed in glass cases with LED lights. Yet Luke never touched them. He looked past the toys as if they were ads. Valerie had an entire line of American Girl doll's hair in every shade, accessories in every set, but still clutched her old frayed doll because it carried the kitchen smell of mom, once baked into its cloth dress. New toys had no human scent. Category 3, fine dining. The Harris kitchen overflowed with Nobu sushi boxes, Carbone pasta, Levain cookies, Balthazar pastries, the kind of names listed in glossy must-try guides. But the kids refused to eat. They weren't hungry for taste. They were hungry for home. The smell of butter, melting sugar, dissolving cocoa, warming in a loved one's hands. No one invited them to crack eggs, sift flour, or lick the spoon. Why? Because of the avoidance rule, to touch the flour meant touching Isabella's memory, and memory had been quarantined. At a deeper level, this was a silent pact among adults shielding themselves from pain. Gabriel, with good intentions, told the staff, "Don't mention Mom." The nannies obeyed. Within weeks, the Harris family rotated through caregivers like changing service providers, Megan Olivia, then Ashley Reed. Each followed the protocol meal: time bath, time bedtime, screen time, never mom time. But the unsaid grew swelling into the silence that replaced laughter. At the table, Luke pushed food around, Valerie crumbled bread into pieces. Silence became the main course. Invisible educational consequences soon surfaced. At school, teachers noted Luke's withdrawal, his avoidance of group work. Valerie skipped snack time, cried easily when the word mother appeared in a comic book. The children had learned that the safest way to live at home was to avoid touching their grief. But children are not skilled at wrapping sorrow. They only know how to turn it into muteness. And prolonged muteness withers. The kitchen, the emotional core, mirrored it all. The fridge brimmed with sealed takeout boxes. Flour, sugar, cocoa were absent. Spice jars sat more for decor than use. The stand mixer stood like a showroom relic. Isabella's recipe notebook lay misplaced, hidden under decorative clutter, not intentionally, but enough to be forgotten. The living room piano told the same story, keys dusted like an unsent letter. The dining table stretched 2 long chairs, abundant but stories absent. In any American home, when the kitchen loses its smell, it loses its heart. Into this scene, Elena Sanders. The black cleaning woman moved quietly, like a witness. She looked recording with a mother's memory and the eyes of a trained but folded-away teacher. She saw the signs unopened. Toys and old doll embraced a Christmas photo on the piano lid flower. Fingerprints on a recipe page. Together, they read like a code. The key to this house wasn't in the front door, but in the kitchen. Yet, to turn that key, Elena had to pass through 2 invisible doors. Class, she was just the cleaning lady, and race her skin came with assumptions. She didn't start with a lecture, didn't rush to teach life lessons. She began with small resets, polishing the piano, first leaving Isabella's recipe book, where it could be seen tucking takeout boxes to a lower shelf, setting an empty mixing bowl out on the counter like a signal. These were invitations the kitchen could open again. And then came the sound that pierced the wall of silence, Valerie's sobs in the late afternoon, followed by a tiny needle thread of a sentence, "I want Mom's chocolate cake." That sound wasn't in any therapist's treatment plan, wasn't on any takeout menu, didn't align with the rule of don't mention Mom. It was the real name of grief. And in that instant, the story shifted from how to forget to how we must remember. Late in the afternoon, when the golden light on the stone countertop looked like a layer of glass, Elena Sanders was wiping away water stains when she heard a sound crack through the wall of silence, Valerie crying. The little girl sat on the kitchen floor, clutching her frayed old doll, the only toy truly used, whispering, "I want Mom's chocolate cake." Ashley Reed, the current nanny, appeared with a perfectly wrapped magnolia cupcake. "Sweetheart, try this one." Valerie shook her head, crying harder. "It doesn't smell like Mom's." In a kitchen lined with luxury takeout boxes, that sentence was the key that finally unlocked the long bolted door send. Elena knelt down at the child's eye level. Not to fix the feeling, but to catch it before it shattered. Her voice was low and warm. "Can you tell me what Mom's cake smelled like, tasted like? What part you loved most when you made it with her?" An open question, not a closed one. Valerie lifted her tearful eyes, and they began to brighten as she recounted Mom letting her crack eggs even when shells fell into the bowl, licking the spoon when Mom turned her back, drawing smiley faces with whipped cream, singing happy birthday even when it wasn't anyone's birthday. Each detail, action, and sound stitched the fragments of memory back together. At the doorway, Luke stopped silently. The boy, who had avoided everything tied to Mom, was drawn in by the pull of what was real. Elena turned gently toward Luke, not pushing, only offering space. "And you, Luke, when Mom baked, what was your job?" Luke hesitated as if stepping onto thin ice. "I rolled brigadeiros. I ate, maybe too many." The corner of his mouth twitched a small smile, like the first sunbeam after a long freeze. It was the sign of life the whole house had been waiting 8 months to see. Ashley stiffened. "Valerie, you're not supposed to talk to the cleaning lady. Your dad doesn't like that." The words were soft but heavy, a sugar-coated arrow edged with class and race. Elena didn't strike back with words. She stayed with presence. She kept asking about smells, sounds, feelings, the things that weren't expensive, but were right. Ashley shifted to management tactics. Kids go watch Netflix in the living room. Disney Plus is on, but this time the children didn't move. Valerie gripped Elena's apron like an anchor rope. Luke stood beside her, not retreating. He had chosen to remain with memories allowed to be spoken. From a lens of analysis, Elena was using natural loss integration techniques. Mirroring feelings, naming grief directly instead of distraction. Reconstructing sensory memory. Smell, taste, sound, warming the void with remembered sensations. Giving children roles, your job restoring their sense of agency. She didn't talk about her degree, because in this moment words weren't the key. Action was the truest credential. Against procedure, Elena created ritual permission to speak and remember. The power of ritual lies in meaningful repetition, something none of the hired services had touched. Elena checked the clock. This wasn't the time to turn on the oven. The kitchen would open properly tomorrow. She whispered, as if making an appointment with the scent of home itself. Tomorrow, if Dad agrees, we'll bake our cake together. Not Mom's cake, because Mom's cake is one of a kind, but a new cake she'd be proud of. Valerie stopped crying, her eyes round as lanterns. Luke tilted his head as if listening to a distant song. They nodded. The tension hadn't broken. Ashley decided to call Gabriel the cleaning lady as overstepping. In a world run by roles and responsibilities, she wasn't wrong on paper, but on the human level she was out of step. The issue wasn't authority, it was the right to remember. The cramped box of a job description had left space for a hug to be redefined. When Ashley stormed out of the kitchen, Elena stayed on the floor beside the two children tidying as she told stories about Jamal the first time he baked. He forgot the sugar. Danielle, who cut her doll's hair and cried for 3 days. Caleb, who flipped a cake pan upside down, and the whole family pretended it was delicious. The kitchen warmed slowly with small bursts of laughter. On the shelf, Isabella's recipe notebook sat like a silent witness finally placed in plain sight, a signal that memory was about to be opened. On Friday, Elena arrived early with a plain paper bag, eggs, flour, sugar, butter, cocoa. Cheap things, but ones that could open the kitchen door. She asked permission to keep everything safe. Apron, oven mitts, wet cloth ready, clear knife heat rules. Today, we're making our cake, Elena said. Mom's cake is already a legend. We don't imitate legends, we honor them. Valerie cracked the eggs, shells tumbled into the bowl. Elena didn't frown. This recipe needs a little crunch, she joked gently, fishing them out, then showing how to tap against the bowl's edge. Luke sifted the flour, white dust coated his nose. He burst out laughing. Elena counted the stirring rhythm, 1, 2, 3, inviting Valerie to count with her folding breath into batter. She told the story of Caleb once forgetting a cake in the oven, and the smell ruined the whole house, everyone throwing open windows laughing. The children's laughter fanned out like a gust of wind, pushing the dampness of grief outside. When the batter was smooth, Elena slid the pan into the oven, promising 15 minutes to smell. Waiting time wasn't wasted. They cleaned together, learning to take responsibility for the mess of joy. Soon, the scent of butter, sugar, cocoa rose in layers, drifting down the hall, clinging to the curtains. That was the smell of home, the kind no delivery box could bring. Ashley appeared, her face frozen. Who gave permission to cook with the kids? This isn't a classroom. She whipped out her phone, recording evidence. Elena didn't confront. She framed, I'm here, present and supervising. The kitchen is safe, the children are learning. Ashley shifted tactics. House rules say no kitchen and no sweets before dinner. Luke fixed his eyes on the oven, not backing away. Valerie clutched Elena's apron, speaking clearly, for the first time, I want to stay here. I want to tell stories about Mom while we eat cake. Elena lowered her voice, guiding them out of the battlefield. If you want, after we eat, we can write a little note to thank Mom for the recipe. We'll stick it in her notebook, okay? Valerie nodded hard. It was a way of turning longing into action memory, given a place. Ding, the oven chimed. Elena taught them the toothpick test. The cake rose, airy, breathing out warm fragrance. She cooled it, then cut 3 equal pieces. The first for Valerie, the second for Luke, the third for herself. So the children saw the adult joining in, not standing outside supervising. Valerie took a bite. Her eyes filled not with sorrow, but with another kind of tears when memory finally takes its seat at the table. It's not like Mom's cake, but it's good because we made it together. Luke ate with appetite. For the first time in months, his piece gone fast. He whispered Mom would be happy if she saw. These words couldn't be forced by any curriculum. They surfaced only where emotional safety was built. To Ashley, this was blatant overstepping. She raised her voice. "You're the cleaning lady, don't confuse your role." In a house long softened by avoidance, her words cut sharp as glass. Valerie, the child who rarely resisted, stood tall. "Miss Elena stays." "I want her." Luke added, "I'm not going to the living room to watch TV." For the first time, the two defended what they wanted a sign of active healing. At 10:30 p.m., Gabriel pushed open the door. Habit made him ask right away. "Why aren't you asleep?" Ashley seized the chance Mr. Harris, the cleaning lady, interfered with the children's development. Let them wreck the kitchen, eat sweets, late disobey. He sighed, ready to give a quick verdict to end the long day. But Valerie ran to him, eyes shining. "Dad, we made cake." Luke followed flour on his face like a badge Miss Elena taught us, like Mom used to. The words, like Mom, hit Gabriel like a sudden break. He stepped into the kitchen, the smell of cocoa clinging to his suit. On the table, crumbs and 3 plates streaked with cake. The sight wasn't fancy, but it was right. He broke off a piece. Not Michelin perfect, but rich with butter-sugar family. That was the taste of home. He looked at his children, excited, standing, tall eyes alive. He hadn't seen that light in months. Ashley continued, "I have a teaching degree." Gabriel looked at her, then at Elena, who said nothing, only stood steady, the pillar of the kitchen. His decision fell gently but firmly. "Thank you, Ashley. Starting tomorrow, we won't be needing you." Ashley froze. "I'm qualified." Gabriel nodded. "I believe you. But what's needed here doesn't live on a resume." In that moment, the balance tipped completely. Procedure gave way to ritual. After Ashley left, the kitchen stayed warm. The 3 of them sat down. For the first time in months, Gabriel asked honestly, "Tell Dad about the cake today." Luke told of sifting flour, Valerie of licking the spoon, both laughing about eggshells falling into the bowl. Gabriel listened, without interrupting, without correcting. He made a promise. "Tomorrow morning, Dad wants to talk to Elena, not to reprimand her, but to relearn how to be a father." On Saturday morning, Gabriel Harris's calendar was unusually empty. He sat waiting in the kitchen, still scented faintly of last night's cocoa, to talk with Elena Sanders. When Elena arrived, he began not with orders, but with an apology for being absent in his own home, for letting the rule of avoidance cover Isabella's name in dust. Elena listened, not rushing to console. Then she spoke in simple but exact language. Children don't need to be cut off from memory. They need a shelf in their hearts to place it in the right spot. If we distract them, grief only goes underground. If we allow, remembering grief learns how to stand tall, Elena said. Gabriel finally grasped the difference between service and presence. He asked, "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Elena hesitated, then told the truth. She had studied elementary education, taught for 8 years in a public school. When her husband disappeared and debt piled up, she was forced to leave the classroom, working 3 shifts to raise Jamal, Danielle, and Caleb. I don't brag because, in many places, when black women share their credentials, people think we're showing off, she said, her voice not bitter only, honest. Gabriel flushed, realizing his own unconscious bias. He offered higher pay, full benefits, and most importantly, Elena would have full educational authority in his home. Elena agreed, but drew a healthy boundary. Everything related to Isabella must be treated with respect. Family rituals would not turn into staged content for social media. They shook hands on new rituals. Sundays would be Mom's dish each week, choosing a recipe from Isabella's notebook, not to replace her, but to honor her memory. Each evening, a small note would go into the gratitude jar placed beside the notebook. Today, I remembered Mom because the piano was tuned by a specialist. Gabriel hired a music teacher to teach Luke and Valerie the pieces Isabella loved. He cut back his meeting schedule personally, driving his kids to and from school. The 20-minute ride home became a window for Luke to share his tough math problem, for Valerie to show her new drawing. Gabriel learned to sit and listen without trying to teach through every word. The small shifts brought quick effects. Valerie no longer turned away at the word Mom. She ate when it was food she helped make, even just a few spoonfuls, but willingly. Luke asked Elena to sign him up for a kids' cooking class at the community center. He came home with a white apron embroidered with his name in blue. In Valerie's room, the American Girl dolls were finally unboxed, and she cooked with them in her toy kitchen, repeating motions she had learned in the real one. The long dining table filled with stories about last night's eggshells, the freshly tuned piano sounding like New Breath, the English homework mistake they laughed at anyway. Social friction came and they faced it. One day the building security stopped Elena in the lobby. Not on shift today. The tone was polite but placed her squarely in the staff box. Gabriel handled it quietly. He updated Elena's keycard to family level, introducing her to management as household family. In the elevator, someone cast a sideways glance, but Valerie held Elena's hand and said loud enough, "Mom, Elena, tonight let's make apple pie, okay?" A child's natural naming shattered more glass than any speech could. That evening, before bed, Gabriel opened Isabella's notebook. Luke and Valerie each wrote a note of thanks. "Thank you, Mom, for letting me lick the spoon. Thank you, Mom, for the piano. Thank you, Mom, for the kitchen smell." Elena stood at the doorway, not intruding on the private moment but smiling when she saw longing had finally been given an address. That night, the Harris family slept in a new kind of peace, weary from doing things together, calmed, because memory had been restored to its rightful place. A week later, Jamal, Danielle, and Caleb came to visit. Jamal showed Luke how to build a bridge model with wooden sticks and glue. Danielle played hospital with Valerie, teaching her how to place a hand on a doll's forehead to check fever. Caleb raced cars with Luke and then washed dishes together. The kitchen was crowded with bodies but spacious with laughter. In the living room corner, Isabella's photo still stood untouched. Beneath it, the gratitude jar slowly filled with folded notes. Gabriel's office staff noticed the change. Their CEO had fewer late-night meetings but spoke more clearly by day. He began adjusting company policy and hiring files. He added capacity for connection and life experience alongside formal degrees. He allowed employees to propose flexible hours for school pickups. He created an internal scholarship fund for people like Elena Talents, folded away by circumstance. Work still ran. The difference was in the measure Gabriel now used, not just P&L, but also the smell of the kitchen at home tonight. One rare sunny Sunday, after quickly handling an issue at a Brooklyn construction site, Gabriel decided to come home early. He walked softly through the lobby, set a bag of artisan bread on the table, and headed toward the kitchen. Laughter spilled out, an echo he hadn't heard fill the house in so long. At the doorway, he froze. Elena sat in a chair, Luke on her left knee, Valerie on her right. The three shared a slice of chocolate-topped carrot cake, passing a single spoon, laughing, as Valerie mimicked the toothless grin of a classmate. Light fell across the children's cheeks, and there Gabriel saw what he thought had been lost safety. He didn't interrupt right away. For a few seconds, he simply watched Elena wiping chocolate from Valerie's nose with the corner of a cloth, tucking Luke's hair behind his ear, listening to every word, as if nothing else in the world mattered more. These gestures couldn't be bought. They came only when the heart was open. A salty burn rose to Gabriel's eyes. When Valerie noticed, she jumped from Elena's lap, ran to him. "Dad, I have two moms, Mom in heaven and Mom Elena here. No textbook could script words like that." Gabriel knelt, hugging his daughter. He looked at Elena. "I was wrong. You're not a cleaning lady. You're a second mother to my children." Elena hesitated. "Harris." Luke cut in, his voice firm in a rare way. When I miss Mom, she doesn't make me change the subject. She sits next to me until it hurts less. Valerie added, she taught me to bake so I can talk to Mom without crying. These small testimonies were truths that 8 months of expensive services had never touched. Gabriel pulled an envelope from a kitchen drawer. Elena, this is a new contract. Educational coordinator for the group's daycare preschool system, full teaching authority, fair salary, full benefits. This is the deed to a 3-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn under your name, so Jamal, Danielle, and Caleb feel secure. And this is a scholarship fund for your kids. Elena's eyes welled, shaking her head. It's too much. Gabriel cut her off. This isn't a reward for a clean house. It's recognition for giving my children back to me. The weight of class difference made the offer heavy in Elena's hands. She spoke plainly. I worry about crossing a line, a black woman receiving too much inside a wealthy white family's home. It could be talked about. Gabriel didn't withdraw his offer, but reframed it. This isn't charity. It's co-creation. I need you to shape the philosophy of the entire system. He slid over another folder, shares in a new company to be called Education with Heart. If you agree, you're a co-founder. Co-founder Elena almost couldn't believe her ears. She looked at Luke and Valerie as if to ask, what do you think if I stayed closer? Luke hesitated a beat, then asked the hardest question. If you stay more, does it mean replacing Mom? Elena pulled them close, speaking clearly. No one replaces Mom. Mom in heaven is forever Mom. I'm just here to keep warm the place she left in your hearts. Valerie nodded wide-eyed. So, I really have 2 moms. That nod unlocked the biggest lock. Gabriel hesitated, then voiced the hardest truth. Elena, would you consider moving in? To live with us? This house is too big for just the 3 of us. I'm inviting Jamal, Danielle, Caleb, too, not as staff quarters, but as family. Elena froze. The noise of history race class rumor rushed in at once. She said, I need to ask my kids. Gabriel nodded. Of course. They started a video call. Jamal appeared first. Protective, Mom, are you okay? Are they treating you with respect? Gabriel answered right into the camera. I owe your mother my entire life as a father. Danielle smiled warmly. Mom deserves to be loved and heard. Caleb cheered. Do I really get younger siblings? The tension eased. They agreed to meet the next day, both families together, to set rules for living under one roof, transparent finances, clear division of chores, respect for personal space. Isabella's photo kept in its honored place. Before ending the call, Gabriel opened the folder of shares. Elena, I don't want this story to stop in my house. Education with Heart needs the philosophy of an open kitchen, a gratitude jar, and the right to remember. You write the curriculum, I'll handle the infrastructure. Elena whispered, I left the classroom because I had to raise my kids. Maybe life's detour has brought me back to the work I was meant for. Luke said softly but firmly, I'll cook for other kids too. Valerie lifted her old doll. I'll sew another heart dress, one for Mom in heaven, one for Mom Elena. No applause, no grand speeches, only the warm scent of carrot cake still in the air, and a promise laid gently down in the center of the kitchen. Move-in day turned the Upper East Side penthouse into something like a childhood train station. Boxes of books, pots and pans, crayon drawings. A basil plant Danielle clutched like treasure. Jamal hauled in his mini drill, and wooden bridge model Caleb tucked a plastic basketball hoop under his arm, eyes shining. Luke ran out for a high five. Valerie gave Danielle a tour of the kitchen like a temple. Here's the gratitude jar, and here's Mom's recipe book. Everything has its place. That evening, they laid 3 house rules on the table, written clearly and taped to the fridge. 1. Respect Isabella's memory. Her photo stays her favorite song still played on Sunday nights. 2. Transparency in chores, jobs listed on the whiteboard, no one defaulted by gender or age. 3. Thursday. Gratitude night. Everyone shares one thing they're thankful for, no skipping. Gabriel watched the marker dry, seeing a household take shape in everyone's handwriting. "What's for dinner?" Caleb asked. "Carrot cake, less sugar with cinnamon," Elena answered, smiling. They divided the kitchen like a stage. Valerie measured flour. Danielle beat eggs. Luke cut little. "Thanks." Mom slips for the notebook. Jamal tested the oven. Gabriel scrubbed the sink. The smell of butter, sugar, cinnamon rose like a prayer. With the first bite, Valerie looked up at Isabella's photo on the shelf. "Mom, I have Mom, Elena, cooking with me so I can tell stories about you, not replacement connection." A week later, Education with Heart launched its pilot inside a repurposed floor of the company's office, an open kitchen corner with safe electric stoves, a piano corner with a freshly tuned upright, a storytelling corner with an armchair and a warm floor lamp. Elena stood before parents, no slideshow, just her hands. Children don't need us to hide grief, they need rituals to walk through it. Here, cooking together, telling together, remembering together, that's the curriculum. In Manhattan, addicted to frameworks, the words were strange, but parents nodded as if someone had opened a window. Headwinds came fast. An entertainment blog splashed a headline, "CEO gives apartment to cleaning lady secret romance." The words weren't cruel, but contempt clung between the lines. Board member Richard Cole called bluntly, "Gabriel, you've gone too far. The company's not a charity. Putting a cleaning lady in the C-suite is PR risk." Gabriel didn't shout. He invited Cole to the pilot kitchen during parent-child cooking hour. Cole stood watching a shy boy crack an egg his mother frail after chemo tear-up when he asked, "Doesn't this smell like home?" Elena approached. No speechifying. "Mr. Cole, the smell of a kitchen is the language of safety. When children are safe, they learn everything." Cole faltered for one beat, but the whispers didn't stop. In the lobby, a resident murmured, loud enough, "Looks cozy nanny sitting at the head of the table." A new security guard scanned Elena's badge more harshly than others. Valerie held Elena's hand tight, declaring out loud, "Mom, Elena is family. I'm bringing her into my house." A child's words tore down rumor curtains better than any social post. Gabriel backed it up with systems, a letter to building management, mandatory bias training, and a new code of dignity he'd authored. Culture doesn't shift by status updates. It shifts by policy training enforcement. At school, Valerie's show and tell sparked debate. She held up 2 drawings, one of Mom in heaven, one of Mom Elena in the kitchen. A parent sneered. Confusing family concepts. The school counselor answered calmly, "Family is where a child feels safe." Valerie stood tall. "I have 2 moms. One teaches me to remember. One teaches me to cook so I can remember." The class clapped. The parent went silent. On gratitude night, each person added their note. Jamal, thankful. No one assumes who washes dishes because of gender. Danielle, thankful the hospital where I intern asks my name before assigning a title. Caleb, thankful. I can shoot hoops on the roof without getting scolded when the ball lands in a planter. Luke, thankful. Dad waits outside cooking class like other dads. Valerie, thankful. Mom Elena keeps the kitchen smell. I was scared it would disappear. That night, Elna stood alone before Isabella's photo. I don't replace you. She whispered, I keep warm the place you left. Gabriel came not touching her shoulder, only standing near enough to share breath. Prejudice outside hadn't vanished, but the household was warm enough now to keep moving forward. Education with Heart added 2 new pilot sites, wait lists growing long. New teachers arrived to learn not from a chalkboard, but from a kitchen washing hands cracking eggs, listening as a child names someone they've lost without anyone rushing to fix it. Each classroom, like a small kitchen, lit the long road out of darkness. 6 months passed like a song with laughter as its refrain. The first 5 Education with Heart centers were up and running in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Jersey City. Each had an open kitchen-safe stovetops, shelves of basic ingredients, a piano corner, a storytelling corner, and a gratitude jar. Elena trained teachers with 3 guiding principles. 1. Presence before method. 2. Rituals repeated to anchor memory. 3. Name the grief, then place it in an action. Parents described the change as if the smell of fresh cake had just filled their homes again. Dinners turned into story circles. Children ate, slept deeply. Meanwhile, the board was divided. Richard Cole brought a spreadsheet. Margins at the centers were lower than traditional childcare. Gabriel placed another chart on the table: retention rates, parent satisfaction scores, incidents of emotional outbursts dropping after 12 weeks. Profit is oxygen, but purpose is the heart, he said. Without oxygen, we can't live. With only oxygen, we're not living. By the meeting's end, Cole wasn't fully convinced, but he no longer objected. Big change doesn't come with fireworks. It rises like yeast in dough. A year later, they held the Festival of Home Smells at a community park pop-up kitchens, a giant gratitude jar where everyone dropped notes. Luke, now 10, in a white apron reading Chef in Training, led a free workshop for kids from a shelter crack. Gently, the egg isn't scared of you and you aren't scared of it. Valerie hosted the story corner. If you miss someone, share a smell. A little girl whispered, "My grandma's coat." Valerie nodded. "Let's fold that into the gratitude jar." Small hands dropped notes bigger than their age. Jamal graduated hired at an urban infrastructure firm, not because he was Elena's son, but because his wooden bridge project could be explained in numbers and in people. Danielle became a nurse known for saying patients' names before procedures. Caleb started pre-med volunteering weekends at the center, teaching kids to find a pulse with their fingers. Elena didn't step up as a hero speaker. She stayed under the stage, tying Luke's apron, braiding Valerie's hair, watching it all bloom like a garden. 2 years later, they had 15 centers across NYNJCT. Elena's curriculum became training material. New teachers didn't just learn lesson plans. They had to spend a kitchen session with the family. Crack eggs with Valerie. Sift flour with Luke. Play a piece Isabella loved. Not ritual as worship, but a living thread tying theory to heartbeat. The press stopped calling Elena housekeeper. They called her co-founder. But to Valencia, the neighbor girl who came to Center 3, Elena was still the kitchen lady who taught me not to be afraid of crying. Gabriel became a different CEO, half the meetings more delegation interviews only to talk about corporate culture, ask names before titles, see dignity before degrees. He spoke of Elena as one speaks of a teacher. At home, Gratitude Night developed its own playful traditions. Whoever came late washed dishes, whoever rambled had to rap instead of read. The piano came alive as a family member again. Sunday nights, Luke played Isabella's pieces. Valerie opened the recipe notebook and read aloud a memory. On rainy nights, they turned off the lights, lit candles, and each read a note from the jar. Isabella seemed to sit there not in pain, only warm. Once investors from the West Coast came offering to scale twice as fast by cutting the nonprofit extras. Gabriel asked Elena if we cut the open kitchen and gratitude jar, margins rise. Elena replied, "Then we'd be selling childcare, not education with heart." Gabriel smiled. "Then we don't sell." The deal fell apart. That night, Gabriel dropped a slip into the jar. Thank you for teaching me how to measure what doesn't fit in a spreadsheet. 3 more years passed. Luke announced he wanted to study culinary arts, designing a neighborhood kitchen program for low-income kids, each class producing a dinner to bring home. Valerie applied to a summer education program at Center Number 5, writing in the Dreams section to be a teacher like Mom Elena. Jamal supervised a pedestrian bridge project. Danielle transferred to pediatrics. Caleb entered med school. Elena kept her old habit, pausing at the kitchen doorway, smelling before looking at faces. She knew scent is memory traveling through the nose. The 5th anniversary of Education with Heart felt like a neighborhood fair. The gratitude jar was now as tall as a person. Children dropped notes like lanterns into the sky. Gabriel spoke briefly, not reading a speech. The day I realized a homemade cake could teach more than an MBA class, I changed the measure of my life. Elena stepped up, facing the children. If you're sad, put it into action. If you miss, put it into a smell. If you love, put it into a ritual. That's enough. That night at home, Luke lifted the piano lid. Valerie opened the recipe book. Isabella's song filled the air. The smell of apple cinnamon filled the kitchen. Gabriel leaned against the doorway, watching 2 mothers coexist peacefully under one roof, one in heaven through music, one in the kitchen through baking. No more tally of wins and losses, only a family naming what they cherish and keeping it each day with flour, eggs, cocoa, and notes of thanks written on small slips of paper. And so, the journey of the Harris-Sanders family reminds us that money, status, or degrees can never replace the warmth of a kitchen, the small rituals, and the daily love freely given. A black woman once dismissed as just a cleaning lady became a second mother, a lantern that rekindled joy for 2 children. Together they turned loss into strength and spread it across a community. What about you? Has someone ever entered your life in a simple way but brought about a profound change, like Elena did? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to read your experiences. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share it with friends to spread the message of love, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next inspiring story.